Weird Science
is the revolution.
Spider-Boy, number 3. And it's okay. I need a little more, but that's only because I liked the character. It's not just because I'm a hater and want to drop it. I actually don't want to drop it. I want to like it, and I do like what we get. I just think that there's just a little bit missing to make it that you need to read it. And I think we get it at the end of this issue. We'll talk about that after I give you the credits. It's written by Dan Slott. It is art by Paco Medina in the nonstop action figure deal, and also Eric Arcianega on colors. And then in the spy-lingual story, we get, again, Ty Templeton, who has been doing the art in that with D. Conniff on the colors and VC Joe Caramagna on the letters. So you continue the story with Killionaire and Taskmaster in the first part. It gets goofy, but that's kind of what we're here for. That's kind of been the book. It's a lighthearted, don't take it so seriously deal, but you are getting a nemesis for Spider-Boy. And I will say it right now. One of the things that you have Dan Slott doing, Spider-Boy's teaming up with a lot of different characters, but I'm glad that you're actually in both of these stories, you are developing a rogues gallery for him, whether you think Killionaire is great or not. At least he's not, they spelled it out, and I think that the concept is a good idea. He can't go against Doc Ock. He can't go against, Norman Osborn, Green Goblin. They'd kill him. He's too young. So it almost forces Dan Slott to get a new rogues gallery. And in the meantime, the rogues gallery isn't like Goblin Jr. Yeah. I expected that. I expected Doc Ock Jr. and anything with Jr. on it, just down the line.
Electro Lad or something.
Yeah, something like, and it's not that. Now he does end up kind of going against Taskmaster, but that was because Cap was with him. But in this, you end up where you have Taskmaster had a job to do with this whole play with Killionaire, and he comes back and he didn't really do the deal. He's supposed to get the super Adaptoid, and he didn't quite get it, but he got a hand. And it's funny because I thought they were just going to play where he'd get almost like a Tony Stark hand or so. No, you actually get this Dr. Stillwell who ends up developing an action figure. It's an action figure, so there's not enough of the super Adaptoid.
Yeah.
So it's only a little action figure. And it's funny because he's looking at it and he's pissed. He's like, what am I going to do with this? This is ridiculous. But then they say, oh, no, because this was supposed to be what it was. But it's almost like if you want to go Spinal Tap when they end up with Stonehenge and it's just a little Stonehenge. He wanted this big guy well, it's just little. But when they start, they know how to pull his strings and say, well, it's super exclusive. There's only one in existence. I actually thought he was going to try to box it up and have it on. But he does mention that he'd have an unboxing, but there was no box. But he has this and he's like, okay, well, I think this is kind of cool. Maybe I can make this work. Taskmaster's, complaining that he wants to get his pay, all that. Yep. So Killionaire goes, destroy Taskmaster. And Taskmaster has to skedaddle out because this action figure, Super Adaptoid, has the powers of all the Avengers. So you end up having, and it's neat. It'll transform into the different things. It's Tony Stark, your Iron Man, it attacks. And Taskmaster's like, I don't need this. And he gets out of here. So you have Killionaire. He likes it. He ends up liking that. He wants to use it. Fine. So then we go off to Bailey's Spider-Boy, and there is going to be a problem for him, just like a Peter Parker who needed money, for different reasons. Bailey really needs. He has no family. I didn't realize. I guess maybe it went above my head that Christina, his friend, that her family's homeless. Remember we were complaining that her family didn't buy him gifts?
Yes.
I felt like a jerk then. Right?
I did too when I read that, yeah.
And it actually gives Bailey a chance to be a pretty good guy because Christina at one point says, why don't you ask my mom and dad for a loan or money? And he's like, no, you guys are saving up. I don't want to do that because he saves, a simple thing. He saves a cat. And then when he ends up, he gives the cat to the lady and then says, okay, that'll be $20. He's like, going to charge. And she's like, what? I've never heard this. Now, it's not that crazy. I mean, you know what I mean?
She did ask him, like, how can I repay you? He's like, oh, how about $20?
$20. That's not that crazy.
And she was like, what?
Speaking of which, one of the other things that we do on the Patreon is an Invincible podcast, and they actually, where we are at the one point for our book of the month with Invincible is where you have the character Titan go back and forth with Invincible saying about who gets paid and how you want to do this, because it is a deal. Superheroes do all that and they don't even get paid, and Bailey needs money. He has nothing. And so that's the big, and you have Christina come in and like, oh, a hero doesn't do that. So he's learning again, and he's learning how to do it, but he says, I don't have anything. Even his phone. We saw it got
all
stolen.
I have is a phone, and then they took that last week or whatever. So.
Yeah. For some reason, we didn't double back. I'm sure he's going to get that phone back. You would think. I thought he got back already, but I guess he couldn't have. He was doing that adventure with Captain America. So he ends up and he's like, all right, well, I'll just be a hero. But hey, maybe I can be an Avenger. You even have Christina like, yeah, because he thinks you can get paid. So he shows up. It's all for fun. He knocks on the door. Jarvis is like, yeah, what do you want? I want to be an Avenger. What kind of pay do we get? He gets the door slammed in his face and he's upset. And he's like, well, that bites. And then he leaves. So it's fun. So in the meantime, you do end up having Killionaire just sending out this super Adaptoid action figure to just do the ridiculous. He's doing the awful pranks that you would have on Instagram. He's like he's like Johnny Somali here, where he's going and just trying to hurt people and destroy. This guy he's a trillionaire, whatever he is, right? And he ends up where he doesn't like that a guy has like a Ferrari. And he smashed the Ferrari, and it turns into Hulk and smashes it. Then the guy has a dog that's yipping and yapping. He's like, get rid of the dog, turns into a vision. Yeah, throw it in the sun. And then he's like, yeah, we can't do that. Okay, throw it in the bay, throw it in the river. And it's going to do that. And that's where Bailey comes and saves the dog, but then gets full out attacked by the super Adaptoid with Killionaire screaming and yelling, oh, man, you ruined everything for me. And we already know that they have that little interaction before he even knows some of the bodyguards. So he kind of like, you guys are in with this? Like, this is bad stuff. So the big thing here, though, is when it turns into Thor to fight him. And it's funny when you have the little Mjolnir like fly by him. It was kind of neat. And
my question is, do you think they have the full, like, is the full power of Thor, or just like a scaled down version of it?
I guess it might be it's weird.
I know, it's weird.
If he gets hit by that hammer, he's done.
Or a punch by She-Hulk, he'd be dead too.
And he's doing that, but because I guess it's like probably scaled, but
it's got to be.
He tries to pick up the hammer and can't pick it up because he's not worthy, which is kind of funny. And maybe that might play back if you want to have a callback, because at this moment he did just ask the lady to pay for, a superhero, and maybe that makes him a little unworthy. But he uses this psychology deal and says to the super Adaptoid Thor, hey, read your hammer. Like, what you're doing is not worthy. What you're doing isn't what Thor would do. You guys are doing bad stuff. And really, again, it's like destruction pranks. That's what it really, and now attacking a kid.
And also, he's stealing his shoes, too.
Yeah, that's true. He's grabbing
He's taking everything from this kid.
It is funny when he's grabbing his shoes.
I did like that
little
part.
Thor, because he yells, do that.
He's like, get those shoes. He's like, okay, I'll take them.
Yeah, I'd like to first off, Killionaire, get a better haircut. He's got the Mo haircut, and he's got the bling. Then he wants the shoes. It's pretty funny. And so just seeing a little Thor trying to pull the shoes off of Bailey is funny. But yeah, he says, that's not what Thor would do. Do what Thor would do. Be worthy, like you're supposed to be. And it kind of, it's a little hokey. It's a little cheesy, but it works for a book like this. And so you end up where it does realize, you're right. And then I like that it just leaves. I mean, it doesn't even stop Killionaire. It's just like, I'm out of here. And then just flies away, which really upsets Killionaire. And he's yelling, oh, my God, I'm going to get you. But it sets up that kind of fun little rivalry.
Yeah, and he also, the super Adaptoid, wanted to be his sidekick.
Yeah, I actually wish that was the case.
That would be pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, and having Bailey have his own sidekick would have been neat, but
because it makes sense for a kid character to have a sidekick that's an action figure. I think
the problem is, I think it might be a little too powerful. It would have been like OP'd. But I will say, though, now that I look at it, I mean, his haircut actually is the Doc Ock haircut, too. So you kind of get that, which is making me laugh. But
it's straight
really
up bowl cut.
It's really bad. But yeah, he's like, I'll make you pay. And even that, this is where I think that Dan Slott does a good job. This whole issue was about not having money, needing money to do, normal things. He just wants to be a normal kid. Yeah, but he has nothing. Luckily, he's able to like live and get things from Feast, all that. But at the end, the big kicker line is, "I'll make you pay," and it's kind of funny. I'm glad that Bailey's like, "Good luck with that," because he has no money. But it's kind of that it wraps around and does a decent enough job.
Yeah, you're right. It does.
Yeah, and then we have a backup, and I think the backup is way more important than the front up. The front up, ends that story, sets up Killionaire as a continuing villain, but the backup gives you the idea that even people listening may not know that he has beast mode. He ends up turning into like a monster, a spider monster. It's in this. Also, though, you end up having Madame Monstrosity, who was part of his origin. We kind of got away from that after the first issue, and we're back to that. And I think that to me, with his buddy that ended up getting turned, they were turning people into all sorts of things. I think that's the cool play that they should go with. Because in this, you have Thor, the actual Thor, and he is fighting a giant, like, arachnid monster.
Like an armored spider?
Yeah, it's like an armored spider. We find out that it is kind of Asgardian. When Thor came down, he kind of could tell that. He could sense the aura and the energies from it and says, "You have Asgardian deal. Why are you at Midgard?" And he's just attacking it. But it shows you, like, Thor, he can't talk to this thing. You kind of get the idea that it might not be as evil as he thinks. And Bailey seems to think that too. And Bailey has to struggle because he's there with Christine. And if he ends up turning into beast mode, he's worried that people will think really bad of him because, as an aside, the Daily Bugle has been doing the menace headlines. They're going, he's a monster, don't get near him. So he's afraid to do it. And I'll tell you, what I do like about this is Christina seems to think better of people. It's like, no, they won't say anything. They do. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, look at this monster." And she's like, "Oh God, like I shouldn't have done that." So it furthers that. But in the meantime, he does turn into the spider monster. He could talk to this spider creature and ends up talking and says, "It's just afraid. It ended up here. It doesn't know what to do. It ended up getting teleported here. It doesn't know where, what, or whatever. And you're attacking it." Doesn't really go. People might hear this and think, "Oh, it's one of those where, they make Thor." It's not really that. He doesn't make Thor feel like a real jerk.
No.
Because Thor, the thing was starting to attack, so he had to get involved. He couldn't speak. But it's nice that's something that Bailey can do. And Thor, with his Thor talk, is kind of funny, where he says, "Hey, I kind of heard of you." And then when Bailey starts talking, he's like, "Oh my God, you can talk, Asgardian," and he says like, "I canneth," or something. Like I doth. I doth. It made me giggle. I like that's pretty funny. But yeah, we find out that it's a troll. It's his spider.
Yeah,
it's
Ulick.
Like his pet. Yep. Yeah, it's Ulick's spider. And the thing's name, he's like, its name is Clop. It got here. And when you have Ulick come through a portal, he's like, "Clopsy." It made me laugh. It's nice. We said that it was like the like Star Wars with the whole
Rancor.
The Rancor guy who, crying for no reason. That guy.
Well, I like it too because what are Thor's options? Just to kill it, or Spider-Boy actually saves it, which is good.
Yeah, he's just like beating it back at one point.
Yeah, but it's a monster. I mean,
Yeah, that's what he would think. Even at the one point, it looks like he's kind of getting overtaken by it too. Like Spider-Boy actually saves him at one point. You end up where Thor's like, "Oh my God, Spider-Boy, please."
Yeah, maybe he saved him.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. And I'm telling you, when you see Ulick hugging Clopsy, it's like, it's not cute. I won't say that, but it's funny.
Hideous.
So again, all of this was that Bailey said, I know what to do. I can help, but I don't want to because people are going to, start going on and on about me being a monster again. That's what they were printing in the paper. I can't do it. And Christina says, no. They'll realize you're saving everybody. You have to do it for the greater good. You'll do it. And then he does it. And then later, I love that like side eye that she's doing, as I say, she's slowly walking away to get out of there because they're like, "Oh my God, he really is a monster. Wait till the Bugle gets this." And she's like, "Oh God, oh no." And yeah, you have a bunch of people taking videos. Then you have this Madame Monstrosity that we had from the beginning that was part of his origin. She made him. Everybody forgot him. And even the idea that she forgot him and was all excited, like, "Oh my God, I made you. This is great. I'll figure things out." And she's like, "Oh, there it is." And she says, "I'm going to get you. And what if I were to help move all that along about how it could get worse, because he yells out, how could this get worse? And it's pretty good. The farm is where they are. And this, to me, this is where you should, from here on out, this should be the main story. We should get this. But I understand it going in the background, percolating a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's, at least it's still in the story somewhere.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you'd agree, but I like this issue better than the first two. Nah, maybe not as much, but I like the idea where you have a fun little story and then you have a story that means something like that. Before it was just two fun stories. It was like, hey, we have and now we have the Helium, Dr. Helium. They were both goofy, so I was like, yeah, okay, so I like this. But what would you give it?
Yeah, I'm still high on this one, man. This just in general, 8.5 for me.
I think I'm an 8. I think, you have liked it a little more than me, but so I'm not going to say it's for everybody. But if you like fun little thing, it's a young hero. I don't think it's as forced as people were afraid of. He has his own solo book, but that actually, to me, makes it better. Because if you do like him, here you go. You have him. I like that he wasn't in Superior Spider-Man last week, because I want that book to be its own thing as well. So here we are. We have it. I don't know how long it'll last or if people will like him, but he's a fun character, and Dan Slott's just developing. We're just learning more about him, and he's not perfect. This isn't a character like people complain Miss Marvel, where Captain America out of nowhere is going to start bragging that he knows that, the deal. Hey, I know Miss Marvel. Oh my God, you do? She's the greatest. Like, it's not that. It's just him, and he's actually a bit flawed. And I like that. So I'll give it an 8. You're an 8.5. I think it's something that people should at least
definitely check it out. Yeah.
Hey, all you weirdos, if you like comic book shows, podcasts, videos, please check the description of this video, where you can see links to all of our podcast shows, websites, all of that. And if you want to help us out for everything that we do, you can click on that Patreon link in the upper left-hand corner and check out our Patreon, where you can go right now and get a 7-day free trial to see all the stuff that we do, shows that are Marvel, DC, indie, manga, and even more. So check all that out, and I'll talk to you all later.
Weird science is the revolution.